Thursday, July 24th at 9:30 p.m. at the Tobin Center at the 31st Annual San Antonio Film Festival. We get to screen a horror classic reimagined for a modern time called The Confession. I am here with the writer and director, Will Canon. Will, how are you today?
I'm great. I'm great. How are you?
Listen, I'm excited to talk to you. Uh, movie's terrifying. It's not a gory horror. It's a little more psychological. Jump scares rather than gore, which I really appreciate. So congratulations on taking this twist, especially on the Pied Piper. People forget that this isn't a cute children's tale. This was definitely a warning of stranger danger.
Right, right. Well, no, thank you. Thank you very much. Um, and yeah, it was one of those stories that it was kind of always in the back of my head. And I feel like in terms of the Pied Piper, and I feel like it's sort of referenced so much in culture. But people don't know the full story and I was actually making the movie, I realized how, how few like younger people really know that story. So yeah, it was kind of interesting for me to like to research it and to dive into the actual myth a little bit, and then to weave it into to my film in a way that's hopefully fun and also scary.
Take us through the more adult version of the Pied Piper. I don't want to say adult, adult's the wrong word, the more mature version, because,
Sure.
there's the little kids version of the fairy tale, and then there's the older kids, the 9, 10, 11-year-old kids
Sure.
version of the fairy tale.
Well, in terms of like the real one, the real
Yeah.
kind of myth. Yeah,
Yeah,
I
the
mean,
original one.
yeah, it's interesting because it was sort of like they think that there was different in different parts of Germany. These there were sort of legends of children disappearing, and usually they were a little bit older children, and a lot of times the legends or the stories were about really people dressed in really bright clothes. The Piper was dressed in really bright clothes, and offering them money or offering them different things. And they think that they were people coming to sort of to offer them, opportunities like economic opportunities or different opportunities in different parts of Europe. Um, and so but it gets so there's like there's historically real, the myth and the sort of legend is based on what they think were actually real things that were going on, and then sort of gets all funneled into the kind of this one myth, and it becomes the story of the Piper, and he's there to, basically this town hires him to get rid of the rats in the town because they're, infested by rats, and he uses his flute and he plays a tune and he leads all the rats away, and then the town goes back on their promise and they say, oh, we're not gonna pay you, and then he ends up, to exact the what he's owed and exact revenge. He ends up playing his tune and he leads all the children away. And there's a few different versions of it, but yeah, I remembered like the Disney version from when I was little and the cartoon version from when I was little, and then you think about it a little bit and you're like, this is a pretty dark this is a pretty dark kid story.
It really is. That's the funny part about it.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
as,
Yeah.
as
So yeah, but that's kind of where it came from.
you know, the interesting part with your film, like a lot of horror also deals with a lot of Christian elements. A lot of demonic stuff is the inverse of Christianity. Like the witching hour is 3 a.m. because Christ's crucifixion happened at 3 in the afternoon, and back and forth with various aspects of, being the complete opposite of what we expected. And going from atheism into a baptism within this film in order to try to save her own son and trying to regain her faith that she's lost is a very interesting twist, because so often we see Christianity demonized in horror films or in various aspects of modern culture, that it was, excuse me, it was refreshing to see it from a different take.
Oh, that's interesting. Well, thank you. It was. I wanted to start her as a person. It was interesting to me that to have her be a person who had grown up in the church. You know, her dad in the story is a pastor. She'd grown up in the church, and she was a person who was very religious growing up. And then as she got older, she had sort of lost her faith, which I think is a fairly common thing, you know. And as people get into their 20s and 30s, and if they don't lose their faith, they certainly it evolves. They start to question certain things about how they were raised. Um, so that was kind of like where it started from, and then and she starts the story as a person who doesn't believe in the supernatural, and then I wanted to have kind of like as part of her arc, you know, her she sees things that are supernatural, and you can't sort of at a certain point you can't ignore that in a horror film. If something supernatural is going on at a certain point, the characters can't you can't ignore that. And so that was it was interesting to me to have her go on that sort of that journey. And then I think at a certain point, you know, and I talked with Italia, the actor who plays Naomi. We talked at a certain point, you know, it's like she's lost her. She's trying to get her kid back, you know. So she will do anything. She'll do anything. She'll try anything. So she's going on this sort of like journey where she's rediscovering a little bit of faith, and then she's also at a place where, you know, it's like I'll try anything. You tell me to, you know, eat apples, I'll eat apples. I mean, you tell me to whatever, anything. And I think for me as a parent, I kind of relate to that as well. It's like if someone says this will help get your child back, you're so desperate you'll do anything. And I think so for her, and then it was just it's interesting to see somebody who says, you know, I don't believe in these things to to be baptized and to be okay with that. So I'm glad you liked it. For me, it was those are interesting elements for me to kind of like work with and play with.
Right, because so I have for people that don't know, I used to be a religious studies professor, and the interesting thing with all of this is that like, you know, people pay attention to demonic aspects and they're like, we believe the devil is real, but we don't believe in God. And I was like, I don't know how you can believe one exists and not the other. And then also the fact that, you know, all these things play into it. So because like I'll give you an example. When people talk to me, they're like, "Oh, I follow Jesus." That's one of my biggest pet peeves when Christians tell me that, because the Bible even tells us, so do the demons. Congratulations, right? There's a
Mm,
difference between
interesting.
believing in him
Yeah.
and worshiping him. So I like to use the
Right.
phrase worship over belief because, again,
Sure.
even the demons believe. So whether she wants to believe it or not, the truth is happening or the existence is happening in front of her. And I think you did a great element in touch with that.
Well, thank you, thank you. Well, and also too, I mean, and I'm not the first person to try to do this, but you know, I wanted it to be as grounded as possible, and I wanted the reactions to be as real as possible. You know, I've never seen anything that I would say is supernatural in front of me. I've never seen, you know, doors opening and closed on their own or anything like that. But I wanted her reactions to be as real and as grounded as I think I would react or other people would react in real life. So that's kind of what we were, you know, what we were striving for, you know, and having somebody who says they don't believe in those things, seeing those things, like you're saying, seeing those things and then reacting.
Yeah, and that's something that I enjoy thoroughly with the film. And I'm usually not a horror guy. Like, you know, if someone tries to scare me, my first reaction is to hit them. So it's good I saw this by myself before the screening on Thursday.
That's awesome.
But this also isn't your first turn in horror. I mean, you've done demonic, you did Brotherhood. You know, what is the draw to this genre and then aspects of demonology that play into your films?
I think for the genre, I think there's a lot of different things that attract me to it. I think, you know, horror is a place where, kind of like the conversation we're having, horror is a place where you can kind of talk about other ideas and other kind of, you know, issues or things that you want to talk about, you know, inside of the horror genre. I feel like it lends itself very well to you know, other kind of ideas like that. You know, with this film, we talked about, you know, generational trauma and you know, people growing up, you know, certain ways, being abandoned, you know, in certain ways. So I think you know, I like that it gives. There's two sides of it for me. It's sort of like the horror stuff and the scares and the thrills, and like those are really fun, and I really enjoy that. Giving people a film they can have a really good time with, like that's, first and foremost and really fun. But then also too, I think to try to sneak in some deeper kind of ideas and things, I think is really fun too, and something I think actors respond to, and audiences have been responding to it. So yeah, so that's it. That's kind of it for me. That it's fun and it's thrills, and then some other stuff you can kind of get to talk about.
Right. And the beautiful thing is you have an incredible cast. Justin Matthew Smith as the Piper, he's haunting. Terrence
Yeah,
Rosemore is fantastic in it. Zachary Golinger, am I pronouncing his name correctly?
yeah, Golinger, yeah,
Right. Zachary is Dylan. He's doing a great job. They always tell you don't work with kids and pets, but here we go. You got a kid in the movie.
and pets in the movie
Yeah.
and goats.
Well, the goat does bite him. That's our only spoiler in this.
That's
Yeah.
right.
And the goat is a nice touch, especially from the demonic side of things.
Thank you, thank you.
Yeah. It's always interesting, like, when people make a film that's thought-provoking, it's very much show me, don't tell me. And I think that's where so many modern films, whether secular or religious based, because we're bringing up the religion aspect in the conversation, falter is that they always want to tell you. And from either side, it
Mm,
becomes very preachy. And with the confession, you show us the terror and the reality of the suffering of this family.
mm. Oh, that's cool. Thank you. Yeah, I mean, I think it's a visual medium, I mean, I think that's sort of like it's one of the rules. You gotta show people, don't just tell them, So, hopefully we did that.
No, I think you did a great job with it, and congratulations on that. Where did you shoot this? Because this is very much an American Gothic tale.
Yeah. So the film and the story, it's set in East Texas, where I was born, and had kind of been fascinated with my whole life. I was born in a little town called Lufkin. Um, and so it's set in a fictitious town in East Texas. And then we actually shot it in Wilmington, North Carolina, which I loved. And it was interesting. When we went there to scout, I thought it just had a great look and feel, and it has the same kind of landscape, the pine trees and lakes and bogs and those kind of things, um, that I thought just worked great. So, so yeah, I loved being in Wilmington, and thought they were a great double for East Texas.
Yeah. And the film festival is the 31st annual San Antonio Film Festival. So you're coming to South Texas for this one. How great is it that you're a part of? It's hard to say local because Texas is so big, but
Sure.
it's still in state and a film festival that's recognizing your work in your home state.
Yeah, oh, I love it. I love it. Um, yeah, for me, like Texas is still home. I grew up outside of Dallas. But it's interesting. The two places where I feel like, my closest family ties are Dallas and Arlington, where I grew up, and San Antonio, where I still have family. And my dad spent the last about almost 20 years of his life. He passed away in 2020, but he lived in San Antonio. So for me, San Antonio is a place that I always love coming. And to get any recognition in Texas and to have my films play in Texas is always a treat and an honor.
My condolences on the loss of your father. I lost mine in 2009, so I know the feeling very well. But now
Oh,
you
thank
get
you.
to
Same to
have your,
you.
oh, absolutely. But now you get to have your relatives come to your screening and see what's going on in Will's
That's right.
head, 30 feet tall.
That's scary. I don't Now you're making me think twice about inviting them to come see it.
Now bring him out and then, take him to the after party.
Yeah, well then I don't want to have to answer all the questions afterwards, about like, Will, should we be worried about you? Like what's going.
Right. We'll be nicer to Will at Thanksgiving this year.
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. I don't want to
Don't
scare
fight him
anybody
for the
away.
drumstick. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. Maybe it's good. Maybe it's a good tactic then. You can get what you want. Get
Exactly.
the piece of the turkey, but
Right. Have fun with it.
that's right.
Obviously your kids aren't coming to the screening being 3 and 7.
Right,
Yeah.
right. They did, it's funny. They came to, well, my son has a small role in it. He there's a scene in the movie, you'll remember it, but hopefully this won't spoil anything. There's a scene in the movie where the main character is walking through a house and it's very spooky and she hears a kid's voice kind of echoing around. And that's actually my son. The my son's voice. So it was fun for me to be able to have him be a part of it. They came to the premiere in Dallas, but they didn't watch any of the movie. Obviously, it was way too scary for them. But I think they came in at the end and saw. Excuse me. They came at the end and saw the credits, and then like hung out for the Q&A and stuff. So that was fun.
Right. Well, that's a good thing, unless you want to use it as psychological torture to get them to do their homework and clean the rooms.
That's
Yeah.
true. That's true.
Look what's going on in dad's head if you don't act
Yeah,
right,
that's right. That's right.
yeah. I'll show you my version of the Pied Piper.
That's right. That's right. Oh,
Yeah.
that's funny.
As you go through this as an independent filmmaker, you have to have a very tight schedule with a film like this, and you have to be very meticulous in doing so. What was the shoot schedule like? Because you don't have 6 months of continuous shoot days to do this. You have a limited amount of time and certain amount of days for pickups.
Yeah. Yeah, no, it's a great point. I mean, yeah, we shot it in 19 days. So it was a really fast shoot. And I think the thing that I had a great DP. It was my first time a guy named John Rutland. I had wanted to work with him for a while, but this was the first movie that we'd gotten to work together on. And we only, and sort of like to your point about schedules, we only had 2 weeks of prep together, which is like for me is just an insanely short amount of time. It was the shortest prep I'd ever had with a DP. But I felt like I just liked his work so much and just kind of felt like I gelled with him that I felt like it'd be better to have, a little bit less time with him than more time with somebody else. And he and I just got in sync really quickly. And, for the most part, we were able to shot list most of the movie, if not all of it. And I think that's the kind of key is just on with an independent film. I mean, I think with any film, but just being uber prepared and knowing what you're gonna do, and then and just prep. I think prep is the key. Like you're if you're prepared, things are inevitably going to go wrong. Things are going to go sideways. We talked about the goat earlier. The goat was a really rough day. You know, the goat. The goat's a goat. So you can try directing it, but there's only so much you're going to get out of it. And so in those kind of days, if you're prepared, you can kind of pivot and bob and weave and figure it out. And I think that's just the key. I mean, I think it's sort of like kind of like life. It's like if you're, the more you're prepared for what you think is going to happen, the better you can address what actually does happen.
Right. That reminds me of a scene in My Big Fat Greek Wedding Part 3. When I interviewed the director of that, they had the rooster scene and the rooster wouldn't stop crowing, but it took them forever to get the bird to actually crow. And they just caught the audio one day, and then one day they caught him on camera, and they're like, "That's the only shots we have of the bird because we
Um,
couldn't get the thing to crow to save our lives throughout the
yeah.
entire shoot."
That's crazy.
So,
Yeah, no, that's so funny. Yeah, no, I totally believe it. It's like, with animals especially, it's like, you're up to what they choose to do.
yeah. You know, it looks like you guys had a great time doing this. There's some natural light, obviously, stage lighting as well. Is there a particular scene that had to be cut because of either budgeting or timing or, the sun was going down too much or it started raining or whatever the reason was that you really wanted in the
Sure.
film, but just couldn't make it?
There was so in the original script, there's a scene, and the original script was the way that you'll understand this, and hopefully people after they see it will understand. But basically, the third act, Naomi goes somewhere, and the way that that all happens in the original script was sort of longer and more detailed. And there was a scene that took place. There was sort of a scene that took place in a bathtub that was like a scare right before that. And just with the schedule, the way it was breaking down, I rewrote that when we were in prep because I just knew we weren't going to have time to get all that stuff. And we also like there's a lot of stuff that takes place around the water and at the and which is kind of like connected to the opening scene. But anyway, there was I knew that our stuff at the lake, the water in the lake, originally we only had a day to shoot all that stuff. We ended up with a day and a half, but and we barely made it work with a day and a half. So I knew at the time that I was rewriting, I had a day. I only had a day to do it, and I had even more stuff to do there. And it was sometimes you just look at the schedule, and you just like this is impossible. This is never we just don't have time for this. So that was something um, that I sort of like kind of figured out, in prep that hey, let's find a way to tighten this up and execute it in a way that's actually achievable. It doesn't do anybody any good to not be able to really do what you're trying to do or have the resources to do what you're trying to do.
I got you. All right, man. So let's put it like this. It's going to be Thursday night, 9:30, closing out the Thursday night block of films. Why do people need to come to the Tobin Center to see The Confession?
Oh man, because it's a fun and scary horror film. So if you like scares and you want to be entertained, and you're in San Antonio or close, you got to come see it.
Come on out. This is a great film. If I didn't like it, I wouldn't be talking to Will about it because I'm usually a big wuss when it comes to horror, but it's not a gore fest, which I really appreciate. Will, where can we find you and the film on social media if we want to connect to keep the conversation going after seeing The Confession at the San Antonio Film Festival?
We're on Facebook and Instagram. I think it's the Confession movie. I should have looked this up before we jumped on. Can you put it? Is there like a link or notes you can put it in?
I can add the link at the bottom. So yeah, I always add the link to it when I have one.
Okay, perfect. So I'll send you the link for our Instagram and Facebook page. We'd love for people to follow us. We're posting pretty constantly about information and where stuff about the movie.
Well, Will Canon, congratulations on The Confession. Coming to the 31st Annual San Antonio Film Festival on Thursday, July 24th at 9:30 p.m. at the Tobin Center. The address is 100 Auditorium Circle, San Antonio, Texas, 78205. Looking forward to seeing you in San Antonio, and I think we're going to have a good time chatting it up after the screening.
Awesome. I love it. Thank you so much for having me.